in the area you're allowed to. Go to the, you bathroom, etc. So we said that. Thank you for coming by. We would also like to thank you, our host and sponsor, Google, because we are a developers group that is independent from Google, but is there anybody who wants to do an announcement on, we usually have a couple of minutes for announcements. If you're looking for a job, for example, you can come up here and speak. If you have an opening, you come up here and let us know. So my company, or the company I work for right now, they are looking for a Python developer, awesome Python developer. So if you think you can do that, and it matches your profile, then just let me know. Awesome. So, and Kevin.
All right. Hi.
I want to talk to you about what you did in the past, and so.
Cool. So yeah, you guys may remember from a few months ago, we announced the Android study jam that we did. So I wanted to give kind of a recap. We have several of the attendees here. But basically we met for about 7 weeks, watched a bunch of the Udacity content, and I think, 20, 25 people probably feel they know most of the basic fundamentals of Android now. So that was really cool. Definitely, I think, the content was really good for getting up to speed on that. So if you haven't learned Android and you want to, definitely go check out the Android content on Udacity. Really well done, lots of videos. I think everyone really enjoyed that. So anyway, just wanted to share the accomplishments of the group and congratulate the several folks who made it through all the content.
That was actually a pretty awesome effort because we thought about, it's only taking 5 weeks, and we do it for 5 weeks, and then we had to add 2 more, and okay, I think we've done it. Most of the people just stayed with us and worked all the way through, and that was pretty cool. So if some of you guys are here and you still think or you want a certificate, just send me please a message. And I tried to get it next week. It was just next month, so I was just super busy. So.
Unfortunately, I missed that hands-on workshop, and probably some others out. And how would, is there a way to try to simulate the same kind of experience individually, self-study, or do you have another class?
Yeah, we follow the self-study. I mean, it's the Udacity class.
The Udacity is all meant for self-study. It's meant for people who haven't done any programming before. It's like the prerequisite, but it's all videos, and they're all short 5-minute videos followed by exercises. And so what we did was, because it's hard for people to do that on their own, it takes a bit of discipline, we actually watched the videos as a group together. And so we sat together, and it takes a lot to watch these, but people enjoyed letting that kind of help motivate them and sitting with others while they did it, and then we did the exercises together. So definitely there's nothing different about doing it on your own versus doing it as part of the class. So it's on Udacity. It's called what, Android Fundamentals? Yeah.
So if I was looking for an iOS, sorry, what is the word? If I was looking for an Android mobile app developer to build my mobile web app, and I was Android Play,
Play on the nano degree or whatever.
would that be a substitute for that if I were to do it myself?
It would get you started.
So, and next month we will have this topic will be Google Cloud and Terraform. So how to use Terraform with Google Cloud, and then we have another speaker from Google, and he will talk about Google Cloud. And we probably will have a little study group only for 2 Sundays that gets you into Google Cloud. So that's what we are planning. Now we'll hand it over to Vladimir and Volta.
It's okay? Yeah. So I would like to thank, first of all, the Google Developer Group for inviting us today, inviting me, and having me on today. Yeah, to present all our current work at Nuxeo around Polymer and web components in general. Yeah, just a little presentation. So Plastic and Primitive Vlad. I'm developer platform, and I'm doing also some support at Nuxeo. So Nuxeo is a Java platform in open source editor. So we are working all the time closely with the support, all the developers. And this is super interesting because you can have direct feedbacks from the customer and having, you can fix bugs very reactively and improving the features very quickly. So Nuxeo is based in Paris, San Francisco, New York, Lisbon, and we are 35 developers, almost 60 people, so more than half. And this is actually the URL of the organization of Nuxeo, and to find the platform itself, this is Nuxeo/Nuxeo. So this presentation is going to sum up all our platform evolution in terms of UI, and we're going to see after that what we are building stories. So you have to get the constraint before. So globally, this is the current interface of Nuxeo. We are on GSF 2.0. Nuxeo is not only a platform, it's an ECM as well, so Enterprise Content Manager, plus document room, plus code. And so basically everything is document in abstract way. So the document represents a set of schema, and the schema are representing a set of metadata. So you can attach some binary to some document, edit metadata, do some research, etc. So the base of Nuxeo is the Nuxeo repository. So we have this content model, we talk about the documents themselves. And around this you have some security, versioning, lifecycle, and blobs. Usually we're storing the metadata inside of the DBs and the blobs on the file system, and we are using actively Elasticsearch. We love that. And this is a platform where you can contribute some services. So we have some workflows, conversion, diff, notification activity. And this is the point of this explanation, is that everything is a plugin inside Nuxeo. So we have this component model that is part of our server. We are like, it has been inspired from the Eclipse model, so we are like Java or AGI-like. I don't know if you're Javaist, but it's just, you have some bundles with a manifest that is going to reference some XML extensions, or JavaScript or Java. We are executing JavaScript script inside of the VM, so with Nashorn. And so in this way, with this kind of component model, we can ensure code separation between the custom code of our customer and ours, so the core code. And this is good, because in this way, we can ensure the maintenance and the migration not too painful. So we are maintaining like 4 versions of Nuxeo. So basically, you can contribute everything. And for the UI, you can contribute some forms, buttons, widgets, the same for services, workflows, automation, and for sure the content model. So you're going to create an XML contribution and not a Java class or something, and you're going to have this kind of forms or buttons. This is just a little example to show the areas that you can modify inside of the UI of Nuxeo. So this is some areas where you can put some buttons. Just a piece of XML file, and you have a new button bound to an action. So yeah, this is the OAGI line. The other stuff that you can contribute is the REST API. So we have 2 kinds of REST API. We have the common one. This is resource-centric API. It's to edit, you can manipulate all the object. But we have also automation. So it's like the old automator of Apple. You can you can stack some atomic operation, chain them, and each time that you're going to contribute an operation, you're going to create an endpoint. So you can, with some XML as well, to create a new endpoint in the platform that you can access through the REST API. So, just to finish with the prerequisite, we have some tools. We are providing the platform, but also some tools, and we have client. For instance, the JavaScript is compliant with browsers, Node.js, and React Native. But we have also some plugins for IDE. We have a generator human. We have so we provided some tools as well that are in interaction with the platform. And the ultimate one, the last one, is part of our business because, yes, we have support. We are open source or license free. We have support, but we have also this software as a service. So, and this Nuxeo Studio is, in fact, I'm going to show you an example, but this Nuxeo Studio is going to allow the user to configure very easily the XML extension. So it's not going to be to have to learn everything, and after that you can deploy the jar automatically in our platform in order to show the new features. So I'm going just for a little example, because it's a little fast. So this is Nuxeo Studio in the cloud. You can create some forms, some workflow. You can create some buttons. Here we're going to create an action that is named Polymer, and it's going to be bound to the automation chain that I was talking about. And so this tool is going to generate a jar with some XML contribution. Just a jar, with no Java class, but XML contributions. So we're going to display, we're just taking some operation to display hello people on the internet. So I come back to my local server, and I'm going to fetch this jar in my local server, Nuxeo, and I'm going to hot reload, and I'm going to display this new button in this new area that says hello. So this is just a simple example just to show you this component and how it works this component. So now, why I'm here, in fact, so why we would like to change UI? We would like to change JSF. And what would be our first approach? So, just the big picture, at the beginning, we were using Nuxeo was in Python, and we were using the page template. I'm not going to talk about that. And the Nuxeo Python has been completely rewritten in Java. Why? Because we're open source, we have some customers that have some developers, we're providing a platform of them, so we have to follow the trends. So which shows that this time JSF 1.0 was trendy, and so we have built this model, this little XML that we can contribute in order to show a button, to show a new, to generate some JSF tags. We have decided to do that around JSF. We have FreeMarker as an alternative for people if they want. And we were a little late, and we have migrated JSF 2.0, but it's just an improvement. But we were like, okay, there is lots of customers that now would like to go to the client side, and it's been a while now that we're going server side finished, etc. So we had lots of customers who wanted to build their application in AngularJS, React.js, and and so, yeah, customizing our application, it's okay. You can do very complicated things, not just only adding a button. But yeah, the people want to use their own JS framework, and they have some developers that have some skills, and sometimes they are like, yeah, I prefer Facebook, I'm going to go to React. Or I prefer Google, I'm going to use Polymer. So, and they still want to use Studio, because, and yes, you can, because Studio, you can create a meta model, you can create an automation chain, you can create your workflows, and, but the question is, can I contribute to Studio, so can I add a Polymer element and manipulate it inside of my Studio project? The answer is no. But we have improved our Nuxeo JavaScript client in order to ease the work for AngularJS, for, well, actually they were by Node as well, it was before. And so that was good for our customer. Yeah, that was okay. So there is a little example of our customer application. So this one is in Polymer, this is a pharmaceutical company. Yeah, so you see the even aggregation of Elasticsearch on the left. And this one for Sharp was AngularJS 1. So you see this is exactly the same, you have a repository with some documents. But it is AngularJS, this one. So yeah, that was cool. But at the same time, we saw this web component wave just coming up, and we were like, okay, we have to do something. Because the standardization has completely changed the thing. And so we are beginning by tools. So before entering into the platform, we say, okay, we're going to migrate, but incrementally. And we have said, okay, we're going to do this playground. You can Google playground Nuxeo, it's just to consume the API of Nuxeo. And so you can play with that, see the JSON payload, etc. And that was made in Polymer.dart. Dart with Polymer.dart. So that was the introduction. After that, we are, okay, there were one developer on that, and then more and more, and we were like, oh, that's good. We're going to see, so we say, okay, new discovery, we're going to start, that was the end of 2014, 0.5.1, I guess, and we say, but where can we start actually? Because, okay, we're going to develop some tools, but we want to test to start not breaking our stuff, our contributions. And so we say, okay, we're going to override the only screen of configure. And so that was the screen, the permission screen. So this is the old one in GSF, and you can assign some rights to some groups, users, and the hierarchy of our repository. And this is the new one. So we are beginning by integrating a Polymer element inside of our GSF interface. And so we have tested some stuff. There was in April of last year. So beginning before Polymer 1.0. And we have extracted some elements. We were like, oh no, there is no calendar, there is no data table. And so, that was a discovery, and we were very happy to do that actually because it was a good surprise, in fact, to implement. I'm going to come back. So the way that we have integrated is just to use the faceplate tag for those who know GSF. But at the end, what is the most important is that we have this element. I was taking at this time an array expression, so CBIOC, Java application. So it was taking the current documents and showing the permissions of this document. So on the May 14 of 2015, there were Polymer beta 0.9. And we were like, okay, we're going to wait, it's okay, it's beta, but it's cool, we are outside. And then after they announced 1.0 for Google I/O. This is for the end of May. So when you have a version of beta 2 weeks before the stable, you're like, okay, we're going to see, we don't know, but yeah, we can understand some developers that can have the pressure of the management for a special event like Google I/O. So let's migrate. And we have said, okay, we're going to do it. And so that was a good surprise because the documentation was exhaustive. It was during Google I/O. We were super excited. It was pretty straightforward. There were absolutely no problem. And this is what I'm like to say. It's just that we have seen after that the Polymer tool that was here for migrating from 0.5 to 1.0. And we were like, well, that was finished. We have finished our migration. But we were like, oh, that's good. At least mark of trust that the developer there would like to help the people to migrate, and not to break compatibilities too much. And yeah, that was good to see. That was a good sign for us. So this is a little interview. Okay, this is like okay. I'm not going to compare any framework here, but it's just that yes, certainly the people are going to ask us, well, we don't use React.js or Riot or other framework like this. What we would like to say, just not alone in this phase, not comfortable with that. We don't want to commit to a framework. We are going to commit to Polymer, for sure. We're getting married with Polymer right now. But it's just that we are building a set of standard web components. So if there is a problem with Polymer at a certain point, you can not come back, but you can just switch and just say, okay, I'm going to register my elements, I'm going to use the data binding, I'm going to find some solutions. But this is set of standard. This is finished. This is the standard. So, okay, Polymer should just be an implementation. And we have some customers that have some skills in React, so we're going to find some solution for them at a certain point. In the ideal world, we would like to, we're going to do everything in Polymer, but we have this set of standards that's very reassuring. And so there was a tweet last week of a developer of Google, and I'm not going to, this is not for the troll, and I don't want to enter into this detail, but it's just to say one thing, so I don't endorse it, especially the siloid adjective. No, it's just to say that we love all the frameworks. I'm not going to say that that's true, I prefer the syntax of Polymer than React.js. That's true, I've seen some people, my pre-sales team, for instance, they don't have any JavaScript background, but they were like, oh, Polymer, this is super simple. This is very straightforward, this is very transparent. Well, that's true, you have React.js with the data flow, but it's just, Flux to implement somewhere. So it's just to say, we don't care about we love Google, we love Polymer, but we don't want to compare the framework, because framework are here just to pave to have some standard. So thank you, all of you guys, for having done those frameworks. That was the little interview. So yeah, Nuxeo elements now. So we have this current state. We have the studio that is building a data model, and we have some GSF tags that are generated, and this is configurable and pluggable. What we would like to have with Polymer elements is to have something reusable and composable, which is kind of different. So we don't know if we're going to keep the meta model, actually not. I'm going to talk about that after. But we would like to build these Nuxeo elements, and then that our customer just leverage them and just reuse them and compose them, etc. So that will be our idea. So yeah, I'm not going to last too much on the benefits of the web component in general, but yeah, there is HTML impulse, the bundle way. We love that because we have the same in the server. The shadow DOM, yeah, I'm not going to. It's going to be isolated. I'm not going to have some JavaScript namespace config, for instance. This is declarative. We have custom type. This is really simple. This is simple, and this is so good because at the support, I'm not going to struggle too much with the UI things. I feel that. So yeah, this is a good surprise. This is really simple, and it has this component model. Like yeah, geographic quantities, you have everything. It's human readable, which is good. And we are finished with this little comparison. So at the end, we were like, okay, in GSF you have a GSF component tree, the same in web component, document object model. Custom components in GSF, custom elements in web component. Binary expression like CDI, SOAP, and JavaScript on the other side. So we were not lost. We were like, okay, that's cool, now it's balanced. So yeah, to finish, those kind of things, you should, yeah, you know that already. And yes, this is not magic. You can understand. Well, this is a little tricky for the data binding, but once you get it, it's okay. So that's great. And so this is the new elements that we have. So the Nuxeo connection in order to directly, without using the GSP, directly you connect to the API, and you have the Nuxeo resource in order to attack some endpoints. We have Nuxeo document, which is just a shortcut in order to play with the documents directly. We have Nuxeo operation. I was talking about automation, so we have this. You can put the idea of the operation and put some parameters. The enrichers, yeah, property is just to say, okay, I have this JSON payload. I would like to add more information in my response in order to decide on the size of the response. And page provider in order to have to do some queries and to benefit from the paging. And so in the same time, we have the Salesforce plugin request, and if you click on that, it's just an iframe that you can put into Salesforce in order to drag and drop some documents, and it's going to push that on a remote Nuxeo server. And so we decided to do that in Polymer. Actually, after the beginning of last year, we were like, okay, let's do everything in Polymer. So we had this component that is just this element that is just a connection. It's using the Salesforce SDK in JavaScript, and you can retrieve the object in the context of Salesforce. So yeah, so even in the old interface, you can have a Polymer like this, and we were able to post the document, have some preview of the document, some button, and actually you can drag and drop, and you can preview, yeah, and you can access the Nuxeo after that. So, as we're French, we like time off, and so there was this one was super, so sorry for those. And so we have decided to test the calendars as well, because we are not providing calendar, maybe, I don't know. But we have seen this custom elements.io, and we say, yeah, they have an ecosystem, it's super cool. Now they have a build with polymer.org as well, where you can find every element that you would like to have. And so, yeah, you see now I'm working less, but I have just less result. So that was really good. We enjoyed that. And talking about charts, we have the same. So Chris is going to talk about that element. We have some customers that have structured and consistent data. They have some documents, metadata, etc. We are doing some workflows as well. So they have some processes. So they would like to get an insight on this data. So actually, we say, okay, we would like to have a dashboard like this. We have beginning, again, by a simple tool. the travel expenses. So this is not very French on that, but well, we have done that, and that was a pretty good surprise as well for the charts. We have done on the top of our API of workflows because we wanted to use that as well. And so this is a simple architecture of the Nuxeo in this way. So you have Nuxeo elements here, some data elements. And as Elasticsearch doesn't have the authentication for attacking REST API, we go through our server. We call that yes through. And so we're retrieving the data from Elasticsearch. Yeah. So we tried with the JSON query, like the TSL queries that they have at Elasticsearch. And we were like, okay, we have to manipulate like JSON. And we say, okay, we're going to find a common pattern. And we say, okay, we're going to do that with Polymer element. And so now we have a query, DSL, but in Nuxeo element. So you can set the workflow name, the task, and it's going to retrieve some statistic about by actor on a task of the travel expenses flow. And so after that, you add just a chart bar that is going to interpret the data, and you have this. Yeah. That's a super simple idea. And you can reuse that. So in production, we have this. One of those elements that I show you. And then we're going to talk about maintenance. Because, yes, we have this in production, and we're maintaining like 4 versions of Nuxeo. We're going to go on that. So, yeah, we're going to talk about build and Nuxeo and NPM and all of this stuff. But just quickly. So, we're coming from Java ecosystem, so Maven and Jenkins. We have a QA.nuxeo.org, super big. And we are discovering the NPM install, the Bower install, the problem of conflict, of version. But once you have the state, we're super happy with it. And so, to explain to you, so we have one stable release per year, around November, and we have like 2 years of maintenance. And we have 4 fast track here during the year, and we have some hot fixes. So all the time we are testing some build for our customer, and yeah, the QA guy or say hello, and the support guy are going to say, okay, we would like to have a reproducible build on this branch. And the small little developer like me are going to say, okay, we're going to shrink that, so it's going to lock down the version of all the elements we would like to import. It's going to install, except that, again, paper elements, you can have a 1.0.x, but inside you're going to have a transitive dependency that is going to take a range. So sometimes it's just blow up. So we were like, okay. So what we did, and we would like to have, what we did is to build, we are on guide, we have built a script, and we have an NPM registry, actually that we put in this corner. We are keeping all the artifacts in our Maven repository, and we are fetching that. The front-end Maven plugin is just to build out. We have some problems with Node.js, with installation, NPM, etc. So we're using this plugin in order to install that locally on our build, on our slice, and that was pretty well. That fixed everything. But at the end, we would like to have this. Just that, and just NPM install, the scope Polymer, and just lock down the version. So the new web UI. So this is what we have now. Yeah, the quality is going to come after. Yes, no, okay. So yeah, this is a really beginning of the project. We're working actively on that. So you see, you can edit some metadata. You can, yeah, we have included our permission screen. So now it's inside our Polymer application. You have the hierarchy on the left. You have new summary. Yeah, that's kind of critical. And you can execute also workflow, plug and stuff. We have also the Elasticsearch, so with the aggregates on the left. We have charts as well in the notification. So yeah, it's a work in progress. I'm very excited about that. And so it was the part related to the platform itself. We have also the research and full text, etc. So, just to sum up what we have, so we're using the DOM as a framework. We have some data elements, mixed element, UI elements now. We're building with paper card. We have some stuff. layouts, and we're going to use the import href that is dynamically import some template. We are going to find a namespace, namespace rules. Sorry, and we are using that as well for the unit testing. So, what component tester? Publicity local is to use Selenium with that. And we're going to use chimp with Cucumber. And WebDriver is using that as WebDriver. I use with Node.js, but not too much. But. And so, after that, we have the internationalization problem. So we have lots of customers that have some end users from different countries. And we have to find a solution. And I think that the Polymer team is thinking about that. I don't know, just pitching it. But we were thinking about loading some JSON in a bundle and just load them. So yeah, we have to, and we are working with crowding because some people are contributing some translation of the labels. So we're going to see that. We're going to see Flux as well. So that was, yeah, I was talking about that with React. We're going to implement that. We don't know for now what we're going to do. There is a Reflux.js, all the stuff. This is a pending subject. We are not going to use only Polymer, only web component in general for the UI, but also for filters. Like for instance, we would like to display a button, but just for the administrator. We're going to use Polymer for that. So yeah, we're going to use lots of things for that. So that was the platform, and then I'm going to finish this presentation by Studio. So we're coming back to our business tool. That does the fact that I have a salary. So we were like, okay, we would like to have a designer. And we had this last year, 0.5, the Polymer designer from Google. And we were like, oh, that would be so good to have this. So we were like, okay, we're going to design the Polymer element inside Studio and do some stuff like this. And so this year, we would like to have it here. So we were looking at Polymer Designer 1.0, and actually, this is apparently a project in progress, and we have talked with Justin Fanning, and he told us, yeah, this is a little bit in the bottom of the backlogs. So we were like, okay, we're going to follow, we're going to get inspired from this. But yeah, this is not me who decided on this podcast, but we're going to go from ninjas, okay, say, to build that on our side. But we're going to follow the project of Google. And so the idea would be to have a customization tool, scaffolding. What you see is what you get: editor, some catalog, Nuxeo elements, or properties, data binding. And yeah, that would be the best. And so to finish with my presentation is just to show you. So what is the big step for us is we have this meta model for GSF. So we have those. This is just explaining how to create a form with a title. Okay. So we have those layouts, and you can add some rows, some widgets, and Studio is doing that for you, this kind of XML. And so this XML inside of the platform is going to generate some GSF tags. This is what we call the meta model. So we have now some scaffolding. So we can edit directly. So this is exactly the same, but in GSF. And we have done it. We can edit the XHTML inside. And what we're going to do is to do this. Just, if you don't know GSF, it's not a problem. We're going to replace our GSF tag by elements incrementally. So at the end, we're not going to have any meta model, we're going to have a Polymer element. And we're going to just, with Studio, we're going to import, we're going to have an NPM registry, we're going to have lots of tools to import the elements from Studio and to configure the platform. So this is the next step that we're going to work on, the packaging, the live reload. So we're going to have an NPM registry local in order to install the elements from the Studio project. We're going to bring probably some IDE plugins, browser plugins. And yes, so yeah, that's finished. What I just would like to say here, so this is great, Polymer, this is very simple and it's very nice. Yeah, the only mistake that I could say, but I'm at the Google office, so I can maybe say that. And sorry for my language if I'm too rude. Just Polymer team. Thank you very much. Don't talk here. Thank you. If I don't know your answers, there are answers.nuxeo.com. This is our Stack Overflow, and this is the slide. So yeah, I don't work on that right now. So maybe you're going to go to this website. Yeah, I used to work just on that. But
So we'll have a QA together later on.
yeah. Oh, okay. That's good.
All right.
Perfect.
So next up is Chris. Google, and we'll talk about data.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Oh, not loud enough. All right. So my name's Chris. I work on the Polymer project. This is my contact information if you want to get in touch with me later, or if you want to yell at me for not fixing your bugs, you can hold me on Twitter and GitHub. So tonight we're going to be talking about data pipes. What are data pipes? How many of you guys have integrated an API with a Polymer app? Anyone? No? No? Okay. This is going to be a lot of new material for you all. Do any of you guys use Polymer in software today at all? By any chance? All right, I got one person. Cool. So for those of you who don't know, Polymer is a cool new library that lets you access some of the cutting-edge browser platform technologies of tomorrow. This is not my talk, but there's this new set of standards called Web Components, which allow you to create reusable, composable, portable components for the web platform. Polymer is a library that helps you do that really easily. So a lot of the references that Vladimir probably gave you maybe went over your head a little bit. But the idea is, today in a browser, I can say video in HTML and get a video showing up in my web page. Tomorrow, maybe I want some special component that displays like some widget, like a Twitter embed or something. And web components are a way for you to express how to display that to the browser in a portable, encapsulated, standards compliant way. And I have to admit, there's like a lot of like cool, interesting details that I probably won't have time to go into, but that's really the high level gist of it. Oh, wrong way. Back in September, we did the Polymer Summit in Amsterdam. It was basically just a get-together for European developers and the Polymer devs to sort of talk about the new stuff that we're working on the Polymer team. Kevin Schaff, who's one of the core members of the Polymer team, gave a talk there, and I just want to play you guys a little snippet because it's sort of the high-level pitch of why we like web components and why they're useful. Hopefully this is going to...
About what HTML is actually doing. It allows us to encode a whole tree of pre-configured elements in a human-readable format, send it over the wire, and then a high-performance parser that's sitting there in the browser is going to, slurp that up, turn that, inflate that into a bunch of live elements, our component, live working elements, without us having to write like a line of script. So HTML is just sitting there, and we can, if we're using elements as our component model, we can leverage all of these things together. But until recently, the DOM has been kind of this walled fortress. It wasn't extensible. And so, while the people who invented the DOM, 20 years ago, had all of these concepts sitting there, we just couldn't really take advantage of them until custom elements. So custom elements is kind of the linchpin to us being able to kind of return to the DOM as the framework. Because it really, by allowing us to extend the vocabulary of HTML, we can really kind of opt in to using all of those concepts that are just sitting there in DOM. And this has real, tangible benefits to you, to all of us, web developers. It means we have fewer concepts to learn, right? I mean, everyone sitting here in the crowd knows how to write HTML. You know how to set attributes. You know how to, set events and set properties and listen to events. So you know how to use elements already. So when we're using elements as our component model, we don't have to carry around another set of knowledge that we have to learn. And then custom elements become this interoperability layer. Because any web library out there today knows how to work with HTML, knows how to set attributes, knows how to listen for events and set properties. The custom elements that we create are naturally going to be interoperable and reusable across a lot of different projects and technologies.
All right. So that's actually probably a pretty clip for this crowd because you guys have never really used Polymer yourselves. So just to sum up, what do web components give you? They give you encapsulation. Sorry, somebody's asking a question. Yeah, what's up?
So this is probably the third or fourth time I've heard someone talk about how easy web components and Polymer is. But why is the setup process still so difficult? I mean, someone should, why is that not being taken?
Sure. Could you? There's a lot of things that could fall into the category of setup process. Could you maybe?
Initially making your application ready for Polymer, it's just our web components.
Okay.
It's still very painful.
Sure. Unfortunately, there's always going to be a learning curve whenever you adopt something new. So I think it's at least fair to say that since web components are new, they're going to have an inherent learning curve for everybody who gets exposed to them for the first time. To put it in maybe a little bit of perspective from where I see things, web components are a common standard that are going to be implemented in every single browser. Polymer is really just a library that's supposed to make it easier to use them, especially since today not all browsers have implemented them. By comparison, the last time I tried to set up a React project, I was npm installing 5 or 6 tools I'd never heard of. I was transforming to my JavaScript 2 or 3 times. And there's all this new concepts for CSS encapsulation that don't look familiar to me as a web developer. To me, that was a lot of ramp up, and I eventually get over it. But then I find myself starting a new React project, and now 5 of those things have changed because the community is constantly coming up with better iterations over what they thought was the best thing yesterday. So I think it's fair to say, yeah, it's not super easy, and we can do a lot to make it easier. We're always trying to think of developer ergonomics, but in complete fairness, it's not super easy to get up and running with any framework today. There's just that sort of initial barrier to entry. Yeah, sorry.
So as an overview of the mobile application development or around that.
Sure.
How would this be replacing that? Would this be complementing that?
I think it's definitely a complement, and it's not just a complement to Google's developer offerings. Web Components is an open standard. It's not only Google that is designing web components. In fact, Mozilla, Apple, and Microsoft. Those old guys. They've all gotten on board. They're all implementing web components in their browsers. So what's cool about that is I can build a web component, and it can be wrapping some Google service in the cloud. But I can go use that web component in, Internet Explorer. There's not going to be like anything preventing me from doing that.
So is this going to be a new standard that Google is driving then across the industry, like actually?
Yeah, it's actually through the World Wide Web Consortium. So there's a whole body of standards called Web Components. There's 4 main standards that fall within it. There's custom elements, which allow you to define your own custom tags. There's Shadow DOM, which is the primitive in the browser that lets you describe, when you put like an input or a video in the web browser, you get a bunch of UI that comes along with it that you don't see in terms of HTML. And Shadow DOM is the way that the browser vendors have come up with to explain why that UI is hidden from you, and how you can make your own hidden UIs that are like that. And then there's templates, which is a new HTML tag that lets you describe an inert subset of HTML. And what I mean by that is, in the browser you have this HTML parser, and it's really fast and it's really useful, but sometimes I want some HTML to be parsed but not actually use, or not actually execute scripts or download images. And for that I have a template tag where I can put HTML inside and it gets parsed, but it's inert, it's not active. And then there's also a few other like peripheral things like CSS custom properties, which interplay with Shadow DOM and give you the ability to do styling within Shadow DOM. All right, cool. So I mentioned Shadow DOM. Shadow DOM gives you a primitive for what we call encapsulation. So today when you put some CSS in your page, I style all anchor tags. I make them all blue, or sorry, all red. They start with blue. And then I put some third-party widget in the page, and it has an anchor tag. That anchor tag is going to inherit from the styles that I put on my page, and possibly in a way that it did not intend to. Shadow DOM gives you style encapsulation, which means that within a Shadow DOM boundary, styles will not cascade. And similarly, if you have a Shadow DOM boundary within yourself inside the Shadow DOM boundary, you have a lower bounds of encapsulation where your shadow styles do not continue to cascade. So this solves a very big complaint about CSS and the browser, particularly one that is levied a lot by React framework proponents, which is that you don't get discrete application of your styles. So web components are also composable, because web components are built as custom elements. They have a common API, it's the DOM, and you just have this consistent API that allows every component you make to fit with every other component that's in there, even stuff that's already HTML components. And finally, web components are just portable. If I make an awesome web component today, it's going to work 6 months from now in the Flavor of the Week framework 6 months from now. It can be implemented in the Flavor of the Week from a year ago or 5 years ago, and it'll still work because I have great encapsulation between the implementation of that component and all the other components. All right, so data pipes. So I got 50 slides to go. Data pipes are web components that wrap your APIs. So essentially, if I have a component that shows a video or a form or something, that's a UI component. A data pipe component is a component that wraps access to the data model, to the API. Vladimir had a really awesome example in production of how they use a data pipe to connect to Elasticsearch. And I'm going to show you guys, we're going to dive deep into the nitty-gritty of how we can actually implement a data component for an existing REST API today. So that was some heavy stuff. I want to take a break quickly. Whenever you're doing a presentation like this for a meetup or anything, you kind of want to come up with a cool demo that's going to get people's attention, because sometimes the subject matter can be a little dry. I'm not a super creative person, but I love emoji. Everybody loves emoji. So I'm thinking well, how can I get emoji into my demo? Emoji, Emoji are cool. Word art. Does everybody remember word art?
Yeah.
That Microsoft company brought it to us, I think. Word art is like really cool because it makes words into art. And it's beautiful. It's like, suddenly boring text becomes exciting. There's so many different kinds of things you can do with it. The possibilities are endless. Word art. It's great. And so I needed some like straw man for like, what are my data models going to be? And my data models are going to describe how to make word art, but emoji plus word art. So we're going to make emoji word art, and before you used to say that's weird and dumb, we totally made it. It's going to be a thing. It's going to be part of their demo. All right, so what does our REST API look like? Pretty simple. Got the standard endpoints. I can get API word art. I'm going to get an index of all my word arts. I can get at a specific ID, and it'll give me that particular word art. I can post to word art to create a new one. I can put to API word art some ID to update it. No big surprises there. This is what our word art resource is going to look like. Pretty standard. So the way I'm describing a word art is as a foreground emoji, as a background emoji. It has a text that the emoji will be transformed into. Pretty ordinary. And so, since this is about data pipes and not about UI, I just went ahead and said, okay, I've got a component for displaying word art. This is the UI portion, not the data pipe portion. So you can see I have a custom element, it's called word art, which is plain HTML, and you can configure it using these attributes, foreground attribute, background attribute, and text. And yes, I've already made it, so here it is. Oh, what? There we go. Let's take a look at the source. I'll put the size here. So very straightforward. In body, I just have a word art component, and it's configured exactly like I said it was. And it generates this work of art. All right. So, got that out of the way. What's the missing link? So the missing link is I need a component that wraps access to my API data so that data propagation to my app is consistent everywhere. What do I mean by consistency? Well, I already told you that web components in general just give you this consistent interface to connect one component to another. The DOM, if you are familiar with using DOM elements, gives you consistent access to data via properties. If I want to set the source of an image, I say image.source equals some string. The DOM gives you consistent notification of changes via DOM events. If the image loads, I get a load event from that image. And the DOM offers a consistent interface for logical relationships. If I want to put an image inside of something, I say something.appendChild, my image. That's consistent everywhere. So consistent access to my data means I'm going to build a data pipe that connects to data in some abstract way, lets me access that data by properties, and notifies me of changes with events. Now, since you guys are mostly not familiar with Polymer, Polymer is a library that is intended to make all of this stuff a little bit easier. So Polymer adds a data binding syntax to DOM that lets you express how you want to listen for events and how you want to assign properties in a more concise way. It looks very similar to data binding that you see in other frameworks such as like Ember or Backbone, but its syntax actually has semantic meaning relative to the web platform. So a quick digression, and I love this because Vladimir brought this up in his slide. If any of you guys follow us or follow people in the web platform sphere on Twitter, you would have seen this tweet a couple days ago. The era of interoperable web components is nearly here. The nightmare of siloed legacy frameworks like React, Ember, and Angular is nearly over. So, okay, there's a little bit of hyperbole there. Not an angle. But let's be honest. 5 years ago, when I was building web apps, I was doing a thick client, I was using Backbone. Maybe 2-3 years ago, I was using Angular. That was a new hotness. Nobody told me, go take your Backbone components, put them in an Angular app. That's a great idea. This is not a great idea. If you do that, it's an interoperability nightmare. You have two different paradigms trying to communicate with each other. And so I've got a question in the back.
I remember hearing a rumor that Angular was going to become a subset of web components, or was going to become a subset of a newer thing. Is there any truth to that?
When you mean a subset, do you mean like Angular would have some impact on the standard, and then the standard would maybe adopt Angular's approach?
Yeah, I just mean like that Angular wouldn't just be like a standalone thing, that it would be, I don't know, maybe my rumor's wrong, I don't know.
No, I mean, I'll be honest, like, as a web components proponent, I'm a little biased when it comes to what other frameworks say about what they do. As far as I know, nothing that Angular is doing is being directly adopted by the web component standards. These standards have actually, if you follow the Polymer story, Polymer's been around for a few years. The web component standards came around several years ago, and initially met a lot of resistance from Apple. And so they had a little bit of, to put it mildly, a little bit of difficulty being adopted universally. And Polymer and the Chrome team has been very active in the standards process, working with Apple, trying to figure out what is the compromise on the specs that will make them happy. And this has only recently been settled, a few months ago. But throughout that process, I can definitely tell you that Angular has not really been like a direct impact on the compromises that have been going on and like the adjustments that have been made to the framework. It's mostly driven, to be honest, by the biggest sticks in the mud, which in this case is Apple. But that's what you get when you're a walled garden and nobody can ship their browsers to your platform. All right. So anyway, back to the other digression. This tweet created a little bit of a Twitter storm. We had one of the main developers from React chiming in and sort of remarking at the hyperbole and saying of course React doesn't have that problem. React actually solves a bunch of unaddressed problems. And web components is really just innovation, a non-innovation that's stifling what frameworks like React are doing. If web components had existed, then React would never have come up with this notion of stateless component as a function of data. And I just wanted to clarify that while you can certainly take that perspective, web components do not constrain how you implement the web components. You can implement a web component with React, and then as long as you are buying into the DOM API that the web component exposes, your component can be a stateless function of data, and it can compose seamlessly with tons of other components that are not stateless functions of data. So what I like to think about when I think about web components is that they're not really a framework like React is a framework or like Angular is a framework. Web components are a protocol for interoperability. Anyway, back to data types. So what does our data type look like? It looks like this. In its simplest form, word art model. We give it some ID that represents the ID of the resource on the server, and then we have some property that represents the value that comes back from the server. So this is the data binding syntax that Polymer uses. Two curly braces means it's a two-directional binding, and what that actually decomposes to is Polymer will set the property when you set the value to something, and it will automatically listen to an event that is triggered by the component that notifies that the property has changed if the component changes it internally. So this is how it creates a bidirectional data binding in terms of the web platform. So we have endless possibilities here. This could just as easily be a user model with model ID something and data that is your user session, or next top model. Well, maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. But the basic idea is ID goes in, data comes out. That's the simplest use case for this. So let's build it. This is all going to be new for you guys, but this is how you build a Polymer component. You start out, you say, I have a DOM module. It's called word art model. DOM module for Polymer is just a package that you use to say, this is some bundle of a template, a style sheet, and some script, and this represents my web component. And then the initialization for a Polymer component looks like this. You call Polymer, and you say what the name of your component is. And that's this is really like the easiest way to create whatever tag you want for a web browser. This is the bare minimum you need to do it. So Polymer has this notion of the declarative properties. And so what you can do with properties is you can say, my component has these properties on it. These are the types. The types are important because when you write HTML, you're writing everything as a string. When I say like food equals bar as an attribute in HTML. So when Polymer takes those attributes, which are the initial configuration of the component, turns them into properties, it needs to know how to deserialize them. And so it has some built-in deserialization mechanisms. So we've got a location, and this represents our API resource location on the server. We have a model ID, which represents the ID of the resource on the server, and then we have some data that represents the data we got back from the server. Now remember our REST API? We don't just have one URL that corresponds to our model. We've got up to 4, maybe even more, depending on the type of resource we're dealing with. So in addition to those properties that I just described, we have some derived properties. So a derived property, in Polymer speak, is actually a computed property. It's a property that is computed based on multiple inputs. So we have isNew, and isNew is relevant because maybe the model is a new model. It hasn't been synced to the server yet, so we have some behavior associated with that. It's going to change what the URL that we use to sync with is. And then we have URL, which is derived from whether or not it's new, what the location is, and what the model ID is. And this is what a computed function looks like in a Polymer component. It takes in the value that it's derived from, and then it returns the value that it derives. So we compute whether or not the model is new based on whether or not it has a model ID. And then we compute the URL based on whether it's new. If it's new, then we know the location is just /API/wordart, and we're going to post there. If it's not new, then we know the URL is going to be the location plus the model ID. So far, pretty simple. So now we need a network primitive. So again, since you guys are kind of new, in addition to the Polymer library, we have a whole catalog of pre-built components that we are constantly working on and upgrading and constantly making new components to add to. And one of the components is a network primitive that wraps access to the XML HTTP request. And so this is called Iron Ajax. It's a component you can put in anything and declaratively configure to make network requests inside of your component. What's nice is, it's a component, so you can just reuse it, put it anywhere you want. In this case, we're going to reuse it to make our data pipe. This is a REST API. This is what the configuration looks like. So we give it an ID. Giving components an ID is very nice when you're making a Polymer element because Polymer will automatically look for everything that has an ID and rally it into $sign property. So you can say like this.$.ajax. So you don't have to query for the ID element, or the element by ID every single time you want to access it. There's a content type, so we're expressing that we want it to be JSON. And then here we're using the square bracket syntax. Oops. So square brackets in Polymer data binding syntax indicates that it's one directional, it's just going down. And what we're saying here is that we want to take whatever the derived value of the URL is and push it into Iron Ajax so it always has the most up-to-date URL. And finally, we have a two-directional binding to the last response from the Iron Ajax. And this represents the data we get back from the server every single time we make a request. So in order to make this thing successfully two-directional, we need to react to a few types of changes. The first change we have to react to is changes to the model ID. The model ID might change from being nothing to being something. It might change from one thing to another thing. It might change from something to nothing. So we need to make sure that we sync to the API whenever appropriate. The resource changes sometimes when we get a response from the API. So we need to make sure that we update data every time the resource changes. And finally, when the data changes, we need to make sure we sync back up to the API. So here's what we do to make sure that we've synced synced to the server every time the model ID changes. So if we have a model ID, that means that we know the resource we're talking about, so we read from the server. Otherwise, if we didn't have an old model ID, and we want to reinitialize the models. When the resource changes, if it's not null, then we set the data to the resource. And then we also update the model ID to whatever the data's ID is. And finally, when the data changes, we say, is this new? Okay. Then that means we need to, if this is not new, then that means we need to put back up to the server. So, let's take a look at it in action. This is a non-visible demo since this is our data pipe, just by itself. This is what the HTML looks like. So I put 2 of them in here. One is new, and the other one is pre-initialized with some ID of a resource that already exists on the server.
Can you zoom in on that?
Sorry. Yeah. There you go. And I'm going to quickly pop open my web inspector here. I'll zoom that in and refresh. And so you see here, I've got a network request for the first resource. Hard to see. Where's my response? There we go. So here we go. Got my model data. Now I can go to my Elements tab. This is one of my favorite things to do. And I can take a look at my model in the Elements tab because it's just a component and expressed in terms of components. And I can access its properties from here. So I've got the data property that represents the model data. And if I wanted to, I could change some of the data. So I'd say data.text. Sorry. Whoop.
You make that an emoji.
Oh.
You must go.
Yeah. I only have a limited amount of time, so my font only consists of ASCII characters right now. Unicode will be the next step. Or sorry, yeah. So, set the text bar, and you can go see in the network tab that I'll have another request. And this time, it's putting up to the server because it knows that I updated the property. You can see the request payload includes the data that I updated. So the text is now bar. So that's the model in action. You see that it works, at least for these purposes. So we got the model. How do we look it up? Again, this will be new for you guys, but essentially you can use Polymer's data binding syntax. It's not too dissimilar from other frameworks. And here what I'm doing is I'm binding the data property to a new value that I'm calling WordArt. And then in my WordArt view, I have a typo there, this is a WordArt view, not the model. For the foreground, I'm binding it to WordArt.foreground. Background, I'm binding to WordArt.background. And text, I'm binding to WordArt.text. So now I've paired these 2 components together. And here's the demo. Oh, look, it's barred. And so, let's resource again. So here you can see it's just like I told you. Now, I told you about the template tag. The template tag here is expressing some inert DOM. So why is it not inert? Let's give you guys a brief explanation. So is a syntax for saying I want to add extended implementation to a native DOM tag. So essentially we've created a specialized template tag that will look at its inert contents and then automatically express the Polymer data binding syntax that it has interspersed within it. So you can do some data binding, which is not actually native to the web platform, but do it in sort of like a native way. This will stamp out the inert DOM into the page, and then automatically hook up all the places that need to get hooked up due to data binding syntax. And essentially what that means is when data changes, an event will be fired, and it will automatically be handled and propagate the values to foreground, background, and text. And just to validate that, here in the elements view, you'll see I still have the template here, but I have the elements that were inside are now outside. And if I were to make a change to the WordArt model, sorry, data.text, hi. You can see it automatically propagates to the other element and over the network to the server. So I've also persisted it. So far so good.
One question.
Yeah, sorry.
How do we sort of map the word art to the word art model? There might be another data model say. So you just make word art dot text,
Yes.
but I was expecting it to be mapped to the ID of the word art model.
Sorry, the view component, let's go back to it quickly. Alright, so the model is mapped to the server via the ID. But the view does not care about directly what the ID is. The view is just representing the data in some way. So when we populate the view with values, we only care about the values that we need to actually express some visible word art, right?
So if I have another word art model there,
Yeah,
how will the word art view get to know
sure.
which word art I'm talking about?
This is a contrived example, so of course I've only put one in there. But if I were to put two, or chances are I'd be iterating over a list, right? So we actually have a special template called template is DOM repeat. And what I can do, I don't really have time to do a demo for you, but what I can do is say template is DOM repeat, and then bind the items that are going to be repeated over. And for each iteration, word art will be scoped. So it will do a bunch of stamped out versions for each item in the array, but word art will be scoped for each one of those items.
This is like a namespace that I can use.
Yeah, it creates sort of a namespace. Yeah. So you can be more expressive. You don't have to say like word art 1, 2, 3. It's kind of nice. So far so good, but no demo would be complete unless I had like a fully integrated, like awesome thing to show you. And of course, broken. We can complete without fail. So here I've got a basic form to compose a word art. It's actually under the hood hooked up to a word art model. Let me inspect it quickly to show you. Yeah, so here's my word art model that this is hooked up to. And I have some specialized pickers, which incidentally, these are components that you can just reuse in your app if you're interested in putting an emoji selector in your app. So I can pick whatever emoji I want. Feeling kind of cool right now. Feeling kind of like a cactus. So, and then I'm gonna write taco. And so as I'm editing this, you'll notice it's updating my word art in real time. This is actually expressed by a word art component here on the page. It's connected to the model, but the model is not syncing to the server yet because it's marked as a new model. It's not going to sync until I click the plus button. I can just change the model in real time. Maybe I like trees instead of cactuses, or maybe I like cows. And then I can add it, and now I've got this list of all of the models that are on my server. And it's being iterated over, and a view for the word art is just being stamped out onto the page. And then I can click on any one of these things, and now I get a real demo fail. There we go. Okay. And I can view any one of these things individually. So here I've basically got a full example of a CRUD resource being expressed in terms of web components and in terms of data pipes. Now,
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You changed the model ID of this thing?
Yeah.
On the fly, initiated a request out?
Yes. So, I mean, there's a lot of subtleties when it comes to what you should actually do when you make network requests. This is a very simple demo that I made. The model that accesses the network is not doing anything special in terms of caching, in terms of deduplicating transactions. So it's really doing the most naive thing you can possibly do, and making a request every single time. But these are all exercises in implementation that you can add when you're creating data pipes as you need to. All right. So that.
With that form.
Yeah.
Would that be open? That be exposed to the public? And have people collaborating on your word art and concatenating their word art together as a
Certainly. I mean, it always comes down to implementation. Like this server that I've set up is a trivial demo server, and I'm probably not going to go put it in production and let people just like arbitrarily add stuff to it. But as cool as scared for me or scared for them.
Is that part of the, so you get the network link or the network to, just to understand that. So you can have standalone apps, right, like
Yeah.
Android app, Play or something.
Yeah.
Which obviously you're not networking with anybody, it's
Sure.
just a standalone app.
Yep.
But in this case, would that be a use case where you have multiple artists accessing a network in the cloud, a cloud call or something? right?
Absolutely.
And then, or this could be a standalone.
Sure.
They wouldn't need the network link.
Right,
Just to
right.
understand.
Yeah, no, I mean, all the things you said, basically.
And there's no, this is a thin client, it's really, like you said, it's interoperable through all browsers.
Yeah.
On any platforms,
Mhm.
at some point, right? Trying to use that standard.
Right.
And so you can have it on Android, you can have it on iOS, someday.
Well,
Maybe.
in their browsers.
Yeah, in the browser, right?
There are some tools you can use to take browser apps and turn them into native Android apps and native iOS apps. So if that's the thing you're interested in, I don't recommend it. It's very painful, but it's,
But I'm trying to get bloggers to be able to use their flexibility on the content that we're writing, multiple content, and I see sort of a direct application here. If I was to kind of take
Oh,
this
yeah.
theoretical exercise and turn this into something quote unquote real,
I can make a quick segue. Here, try Notion. This one. No, not this one. There was, I don't know if I'm going to bring it up, but there's a really cool kind of like Google Docs-esque startup called Notion.
Notion.es.
Huh?
Notion.es.
Notion.es. And they've built this platform.
Oh.
No, I don't think it's here. They built this platform that's like essentially a collaborative document editor, and it's all done with web components. It's very cool. So like you have all these different types of content that can go into the document, and they're all encapsulated from each other natively by the platform, because that's what web components does. I would definitely recommend checking that out if you're interested in that. Cool. So, oh yeah.
Do you have hooks for unit tests or any kind of testing?
I got this coming up. Yeah, it's further along in the presentation. So for further exploration, stuff I didn't really get into my demo, deleting API resources. WordArt query was in there. I didn't really talk about it, but when we saw the index view, it was essentially a data pipe similar to the model, but allows you to do a filtered query on the API and return some list of models as opposed to a single model. And then offline persistence is another topic, which might be interesting to some of you. That was not part of this demo. And also transaction queuing and pooling. These are all things that are like incrementally easy to implement, but I just didn't really have time for my demo. So testing. You guys probably didn't see see the talks from Polymer Summit, but I did a whole talk on testing web components. You should definitely check it out on YouTube. To do a brief summary, we have a tool called Web Component Tester. It just wraps a bunch of standard web platform tools, Synon.js, Mocha, Chai for assertions, brings them into one nice package and helps you run Mocha suites with a bunch of tools added, but expressed as HTML documents, which is sort of the native environment for web components. So what I was going to do was sort of like go into like, well, this is how you would test a data pipe. So some of this stuff is glossing over what web component tester would actually do for you. But this is also agnostic of web components, so it's still pretty interesting. So Synon.js is a framework for testing that lets you do a bunch of different things. Mocking properties, stubbing properties, stubbing out network requests and asynchrony in your DOM. You should check it out. It's called Synon.js. So one of the things it does is it lets you create what it calls a fake server. And a fake server is just going to sit there and make sure that any network request that gets made gets captured and lets you respond to it in your own special stubbed out way synchronously. And so with our component, we have a bunch of network requests that are getting generated, all these API requests. And so we need to make sure that the server responds to them in some way that's forgiving to our tests. So here I'm stubbing out access to API word 1. I'm looking at get requests for API word 1, and I'm telling it to respond with a 200 status code with the application JSON constant type, and then I'm giving it some model data to just send back automatically. What's cool about this is I can set it up, and in my test, which I don't want making actual network requests anywhere, if they're just testing front-end components, I never make any network requests. It all gets intercepted by this thing, and I can make sure that all my assertions are based around non-actual network code. Here's another permutation on this. Now I'm going to do tons of things, but another example is for put requests. I'm passing in a function and then dynamically responding. So I'm saying xhr.respond, same content type, but I'm giving it a specific body that's related to the request that was just made. In this case, I'm just echoing the data that came in. So it's not hard-coded like it was in the other example. So also, if you were more familiar with Web Component Test, you would have seen this before. It's a special component we've made called Test Fixture. And Test Fixture essentially lets you fixture DOM and then stamp it out repeatedly and then clear it out repeatedly before and after each test so that you have like a nice hygienic fixture of elements that are created the way they would be created if they were just living in a document. So here I've just described a fixture that is a single model that I want to test. Here's the video for my talk from the Polymer Summit. It's all about Web Component Tester. It does all the ins and outs. So if you're new to it, it's a great talk. I definitely recommend checking that out. So here's what the test setup is going to look like. I'm going to say word model equals fixture. Fixture is a helper that we've built into Web Component Tester. We're going to say fixture basic model. And now you notice the basic model is actually the ID of the test fixture. So what this is going to do is it's going to find the test fixture, stamp out the DOM, and then return the DOM. And I'm going to get it as word art model. I'm going to do that at the beginning of every single test. And this is roughly what the test will look like. I'll say my word art model's model ID is something. And then I will look at server.requests, which is an array that's an honest data for me of all the requests that have been made. And then I'll assert on the values I got in the request. So this is just basically saying I want to make sure that my model, when it gets an ID, makes the correct request to the server. And what's nice about, my favorite part about this is it's synchronous, because we're no longer bound by the asynchrony and inherent network requests, because we've stubbed everything out. So that was data pipes testing. I want to talk a little bit about what data pipes do we have access to today, besides what I've just shown you. I kind of walked you through like how can you make your own data pipe, but there's a bunch of stuff. The beauty of web components is there's a bunch of stuff that's reusable. So what exists today for me to use? We've got Iron Ajax, which I showed you. Iron Ajax is just a great primitive for making network requests, whether it's for REST API or getting some JSON. The screenshot is just a screenshot of our documentation page. So when you get the slideshow, there's a link here to Iron Ajax documentation. We have Iron Local Storage. So this is kind of cool if you have like an app that doesn't actually need a server, but you have some persistence that you want. You can do the exact same things you saw today with the model, but use local storage instead. You don't even have to really describe a schema or anything. And we have, these ones are probably going to be very interesting to those of you who don't want to set up your own backend, but you need a server for something. So we have a pair of components called Firebase Document and Firebase Collection. You can go out today and sign up for Firebase for free. I do work for Google, so I have to say that. And you can make a database, like a backend, for your server for free, and really without any commitment. And you can configure these elements to point to that backend and get real-time synchronization between your UI and some backend. It supports authentication and as many users as you want, and sort of like totally free-form document store. I really love this as like a set of elements for just prototyping apps. Like a lot of times I'll start out with Firebase and then let go and make some more specific server later after I grew out of the free plan. Anyway, definitely recommend checking those out. And then finally, here's what we have in the roadmap. So some of you guys may be familiar with Service Worker. This is a really awesome new standard for technology in the browser that essentially lets you have stuff like background synchronization, communication between tabs, control over caching, like you can proxy all network requests and like force some stuff to be cached or deliberately not cache other things. It's a very powerful primitive. We're building a bunch of components that are going to wrap Service Worker and make it essentially as easy to use as the word art view, for instance. Like you just put an element in your page and you've got special caching. We actually have a couple of components like this that are kind of in a prototype stage. called Platinum Elements. If you go and look at the Polymer Elements org on GitHub, you can find them. Another thing that we're going to be working on is offline first in a component. And this idea is, if you have some service that you're connected to with data pipes, you can plug in another component that will magically make your app work in many offline conditions. So for example, when your users are on the train and they go through a tunnel and suddenly they're offline, they still want to make changes to data, and you want those changes to be synced when they come back online. These components are going to let you do that, just dropping in. And then declarative multi-master replication, and really that's just a fancy way for me to say that we're going to be wrapping PouchDB in a component. So we'll have PouchDB, we'll have Kinto, which is this new, quite similar to Firebase, backend system that's coming out of Mozilla. And finally, your storage layer here. So if you have a backend as a service company, or if you have some common backend that a lot of people use and you're building a component around it, we'd love to hear about it. It's really awesome to hear about Nuxeo, and the more of these we see, I think the better. It just makes the whole trouble of integrating the UI with the backend way easier. And finally, I want to say thank you to one of my coworkers, Monica Dinkulescu, whose name I can never spell, so I copy pasted it. And I just wanted to call out a really awesome blog post she wrote recently about emoji. She implemented a lot of emoji features in Chrome, and so she knows her stuff. You should definitely check it out. And put this thanks in here because I totally ripped off the emoji selector from her. So that was her work. And that's it. Thanks.